Good morning, members, and to the viewing public who are watching through our social media platform, and to our folks from the Department of Labor. Good morning and welcome. The chair will now call this budget hearing to order. And with 8 members from the Ways and Means Committee, we have duly established a quorum to conduct today's order of business. So with that said, do I hear a motion to adopt today's agenda? There is a motion to adopt today's agenda, and it has been seconded. Discussion on the motion? Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion adopted. So we move down to item 3 on our order of business, which is public comments. If there's anyone here, members of the public who wish to make comments. Seeing that there is no public comments, we move further down on item 4. And at this time, the chair would like to thank you, Madam Secretary, and your team for coming before this Committee of Ways and Means so that we can discuss your budget request and, of course, the proposed budget from the administration. Today, I am here as the chair. Representative J.P. Sablon. To my left is the Vice Chair, Rep. B.J. Atto. We have also the floor leader, Representative Marisa Flores, here with us. To her left, we have Representative Roman Benavente. And to his left, we have Representative Vincent O'Don. On the other side of the aisle, we have Representative Malcolm Omar. To his left, we have Representative Denita Yangtemay. And to her left, we have our minority leader, Representative Roy Adda. Also assisting our committee today is our LB staff, our legal counsel, Joe Taran. We have our budget analyst, T.G. Rabago. We have our senior legislative assistant, Ms. Claire Sablon. We have our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Will. And we have our IT, Jonathan Diaz here. So with that said, this time I give you the floor for your opening statement. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you so much to all of the members of the Ways and Means Committee for convening this Department of Labor budget hearing today and letting us be first in line. We much appreciate you. My name is Leila Staffler, Secretary of Labor for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and let me introduce my team. To my right, I have Francis Torres, who is the Director of the WEOA. The WEOA was, sorry, I'm still having my coffee break in. And to my right also is Leila De Leon Guerrero, who runs the administrative office for our finance. And to my left is Auntie Pat Camacho, who does HR. And to my further right or left is Director of Enforcement, Mr. Jose Kiyoshi. He is newly joined to the Department of Labor team. I do have other members of the team in the audience who can answer any questions specific to other parts of our department, and I will introduce them as needed. First, I want to thank you all for your steadfast commitment to our workforce. I'm honored to present this department's fiscal request to sustain and grow as our role in the CNMI's economy and the backbone of our labor market. We stand at a pivotal moment in our islands as our public and private sectors alike are bracing for challenges as the struggling economy continues in this challenging and changing world with elements often beyond our control. So we focus here at home, preparing our local job seekers to fulfill significant vacancies across key industries of tourism, hospitality, healthcare, construction, and more. And our department, as you know, fulfills 3 interlocking missions. The first of that mission is employment, placement, and workforce development through in-person job fairs, registered apprenticeship programs, and skills training under WEOA and related federal grants. We actively cultivate pipelines to get CNMI residents certified, qualified, and ready for available work, doing our part to address the skilled workforce shortages in the CNMI. Our second mission is outreach and stakeholder engagement. CNMI OSHA provides free safety consultations. Employment Services provides employer guidance from assisting with JVA postings to data collection and reporting. Also, we provide community forums to ensure that businesses and workers stay informed and compliant. These are proactive measures the department takes to support small businesses, especially during periods of transition and employees who are looking for work. The third and final mission of the Department of Labor is regulatory oversight and worker protections, and this is really key. Our Enforcement and Compliance Division and the Administrative Hearing Office are important to upholding labor standards and the law. We ensure fair pay, safe working conditions, and swift adjudication of disputes and violations. However, this vital work depends on fully staffed teams. When I first joined the Department of Labor, the Administrative Hearing Office had been reduced to just 2 staff, 1 hearing officer and 1 clerk. The following year, that number went to 1, with just the Administrative Hearing Officer granted an FTE and no one to run the office. And while there were efforts made by this august body to correct that, I thank you again, unfortunately, this issue has persisted, and the office is currently reduced again to 1 FTE since last fiscal year. This year, we do see that there are 2 FTEs in the Administrative Hearing Office, but I plead to you to consider. In reviewing our records, I've found that this understaffing has persisted for the last decade. I went back and looked at old budgets, and the Administrative Hearing Office, since the CNRA, had been reduced from maybe 5 staff to 1 as it is today. The operations for the Administrating Hearing Office are critical to addressing any enforcement action made by Enforcement and Compliance Division or a labor complaint made by a community member. I repeat, the operations of the Administrative Hearing Office are critical to addressing any enforcement action made by Enforcement and Compliance or a labor complaint made by a community member. Nothing happens if there is not an Administrative Hearing Office. This is such a critical part of the Department of Labor and really to our economy. We are the foundation to the economy to ensure that workers can find work and employers can find workers. And so for the Administrative Hearing Office, at minimum, we require at least 1 Administrative Hearing Officer to serve as an impartial decision maker, upholding procedural due process, at least 1 clerk to manage filings, prepare hearing records, and ensure accurate documentation, and 1 administrative staff member to coordinate hearings, notify parties, and support daily operations. Without these essential roles, this office cannot uphold the fundamental principles of fairness, neutral adjudication, proper notice, and opportunity to be heard, which are all legally mandated. These requirements are not optional. They are core legal standards for any administrative adjudicatory body. Operating with fewer staff undermines our capacity to provide timely notice of hearings and evidence, denying participants their opportunity to prepare, ensuring decisions are rendered impartially and in accordance with established legal protocols, and maintaining accurate records, conducting hearings, and issuing reasoned and documented orders. In short, we are legally bound to provide fairness and due process, but with insufficient staff even meeting the basic threshold, it is impossible. If we fail to have the necessary personnel, our office cannot effectively serve the community, not by choice, but by legal limitation. To fulfill our mandate, we urgently need to restore and sustain the minimum staffing levels required for credible, lawful, and equitable administrative hearings. In closing, we respectfully urge you for this support and to support this budget, and please don't blindly cut FTEs because the position is not filled. A functional, well-staffed Department of Labor is not a cost. It is a catalyst for the CNMI's stability and prosperity and equitable growth. A strong Department of Labor fosters economic stability. During economic downturns and labor market shifts, the DOL acts as a stabilizer, helping displaced workers retain and re-enter the workforce, and monitoring shifts to protect worker rights. This is something that we've actively been doing this last year, as you can see with our record and all of the PRs that are out there. But we need your help. Thank you for considering our budget and for your partnership in keeping the CNMI working.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we move further forward with our budget hearing, let me recognize that the presence of Rep. TJ Maglonia, who is also a member, and Rep. Joe Flores, who has joined us. We also have here joining us and assisting us also today is Ms. V from the Office of OMB. And so with that, Madam Secretary, I know that your opening remarks talks about the vacancy of the Administrating Hearing Office how long has this vacancy been open?
Well, we recently had the resignation of the current or the last hearing officer in, I believe, December. And so that vacancy has been open since then. And prior to that, we had been trying to hire a second hearing officer using PUA funding as a supplemental resource because PUA has so many appeals that are in process, but we were unable to fill that vacancy. We've posted vacancies at least 3 times, at least 3 different times. Currently, we have a vacancy that's open until filled. We still do not have any applicants, which is why we did ask for a raise in this salary for that particular position. The hearing clerk is in this budget. It is also vacant. The last hearing clerk we had resigned in 2023. Then we had the continuing or the joint resolution that gave us the hearing clerk again, and we posted that vacancy, and we've actually, excuse me, we hired someone, but they resigned, unfortunately, like maybe after the probationary period was over. So that at that time, then we went through the budget hearing again, and that position was taken away. So now we're back to square one, and we have no staff. What we have been doing is hiring legal services. So we are actively still conducting hearings for PUA. We've just started having some hearings for labor complaints, but that is still a slow road until we get a full-time person. We are also looking at recruiting to fill this very, very important position, but we are just waiting for the budget season to be over so that we can pursue that.
So at the moment, while this position is vacant, you're getting services outside the department with private services, and what funding are you using to pay those professional services?
We are currently using PUA funding to address PUA appeals only, and sometimes we might need to have a second legal service option because sometimes that person must recuse themselves. So that is for PUA. We have CW administrative funds that are available to this office, so we have used that for our first set of legal services to address the pending labor cases that are on our docket right now.
Thank you for that clarification. And with the PUA funds, how long are we till it's depleted? When does it end?
Thank you. Great question. The program, we are still waiting for our official extension, but we did request an extension, and the program is slated to end June 30th. But we've been given information that they are going to give us an extension until maybe September. That's also still tentative. We have a lot of things pending, but the PUA funding should be able to address the appeals as it stands, and
Even further, right? Than June 30?
yes.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I also see that there is a vacancy on your enforcement section, labor law enforcement 2. Are there any works in trying to fill this vacancy?
Yes, sir. It actually was filled.
Oh,
And
just
so-
recently?
Yes. In the last 3 months, she was recently hired.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then one more question before I open up the floor to the members. It seems like you don't have a budget for utilities. So the question is, what's paying your utilities on all your division and your department?
PUA, because they had staff in many of our buildings, was supplementing the power for those buildings because
Okay.
we are sharing space. And then CW administrative fees for administering the CW program have helped us address the additional and remaining utilities.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. At this time, I open the floor, and let me recognize the Vice Chairman, Rep. Bijato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for joining us this morning, and to your team. Ms. V, thank you for joining us this morning. Just a follow-up question on on the PUA, before we move further, how much is left in the PUA account?
If I may bring Zach up to help address some of these.
Sarge, can we assist Mr. Jack? I've thought nga gano, Mr. Kyoshi, can have him sit over your here.
Thank you all for your flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. Handsome, for accommodating. Rep, it's now done.
Is this for, sorry, is your question regarding benefits or administrative costs?
Uh, let's break it down. Administrative.
Okay, so we'll just start with benefits because that's how, my fund status is laid out. So for FPUC, we receive 325.6 million. Of that, 183.1 million is left. For PUA, 371.4 million was received. We're down to 231 million. Across the various administrative costs, we have one account with 1.9 million, balance at 27,000. Another block of funding is at originally granted at 7.1 million, and we're down to 791,000. Of 150,000, we're down to 10,000 on a separate account. Sorry, there's multiple blocks of funding here. 292,000 is down to 62,000. Our 198,000 funding is down to 56.7 thousand. And our 4.5 million is down to 1 million. And we have two additional funding sources that expire in September, aside from everything else that was mentioned expires at the end of June. That's for PUA admin, 471.4 thousand is down to, or well, that hasn't been utilized yet. We're starting to do that effective July. And 188,000 is down to 174,000.
So in total, how much do we have left? That's a lot of different accounts.
Yeah, in admin, the total for admin is 15 million. We're down to about 2 across various funding accounts for various different purposes. So it's not all just staffing. There's other categories there. For benefits, in total, the CNMI received close to 700 million. We're down to 414 million.
Are these monies still here in the CNMI?
Yes, we still have access.
Okay. Well, this was one of the requests from the administration, right, to change the usage of these monies.
Right.
Is there repurpose was the call again? Is there something that labor would consider maybe with these funds, since it's still on island, to request to use these funds as seed money for unemployment?
Sorry, when we say labor, local labor or federal?
Local labor.
I mean, I think that it's a good idea, but I don't think that's realistically going to happen.
But unless we try, then we're going to find out, right?
Yeah, there was a request from the administration to do the, repurposing, but we still haven't heard back on that.
But rather than repurposing it, actually keeping it with labor for seed money for unemployment, kind of like something what we had with the COVID, right? That's where PUA was born, and this was the seed money that paid our people that were furloughed or rift. Is that something that we may consider? At least, we're meeting expiring dates, and I don't think we're going to exhaust the funds. Would that be something, Secretary, that your office might consider?
We have made the requests that went along the lines of doing unemployment insurance, a feasibility study. We asked for that in addition to the other asks that the administration included to try to support our economy. However, the response was not clear on whether or not that would be allowable, but most of the lower level people that we speak to, benefits are unheard of to be switched into anything else the way that it's explained to us. But the higher up you go, you never know. So that's why these requests and asks have still been made despite those challenges. I will say that with the expiration coming nearer, they have asked us to deobligate a lot of the benefit funds, which would then return them back to the federal government. That was just Friday afternoon that we were told this, and so we have not begun. But that would be probably not going to help
Not going
what
to
you're
help.
asking.
But what about then if, well, we have the WEOA program, right? Prior to the WEOA program, we used to have this JTPA program that was funded on a local level. Would that be something for consideration to transfer that to mirror the WEOA program, but on the local level?
Well, all of these would take an act of Congress
Sure.
because all of that money is tied up to the law that gave us this funds with the CARES
Sure.
Act. And so I really have no opinion or any line of communication to address your question. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep the money here
Yeah.
as much as possible.
No, I think that the ask is still there, and so we're hopeful. There were many different programs that the administration was considering, including PPP, like those other things that happened during the pandemic as well. But I never received any direct response to that myself. Perhaps they might have.
Sure, and I'm hopeful, right? Because 2029 is just around the corner, and these funding would actually assist us in getting more of maybe I don't want to say the local workforce, right? But as per 110229 as amended, we can use these funds actually for startup costs for a lot of our private businesses on island. But okay, how about the administrative costs under CW? How much is in that account?
I will allow Layla to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, we currently have $199,000. You could say 200,000. It's 930,000.
The CW funds are retained by labor for administrative purposes.
Annually, it's between 5 and 7%. It has changed each year. I believe last year it was at 5% or 6%.
And you guys you're currently the expenditure authority, or is it still with the scholarship office?
It is with Department
With your
of Labor.
office?
Yes.
How much is the total amount that you're receiving then on CW?
Last year, the total amount of CW was 1.2. Yeah, I think about $1.2 million total
Okay.
was received in revenues from USCIS.
Are they up to date already, or is it kind of like in the middle of the year, like it's been happening the past 10 years?
Well, we finally created a program year, so now we can monitor the funds as we receive them every quarter, and we know how much to give out to each of the entities who were granted the CW money in the plan that's given to Congress or Department of Labor every June. And so the way it works now is starting in October, we count the first quarter, but we don't give out the funds until the second quarter because we need to know how much revenue is received. So October, November, December, on January 7th, we email Treasury and ask them to please send us the bank statement. From the bank statement, we can see what U.S. Treasury has deposited into the CW account. From there, we take those numbers and we break it down based on the percentages that the CW grantees are awarded. That process is done in about March and April of the year prior. And so then we know what percentage of those funds that we receive are then given out to NMC, NMTI, and the apprenticeship fund.
All right, thank you for that. And you said you get about $1.2 million?
Well, for a quarter, it fluctuates. The first, second, and fourth quarter are usually around the same amount. Well, not really. They fluctuate. The third quarter has often been the largest amount, and it could be as small as $50,000, and it could be as big as $200,000. It just depends on how many things are processed by USCIS. We have no idea what it would be. We just see the numbers.
And I think that's where we're getting at, because the actual number that you're going to get on an annual basis about roughly $1.2 million, right?
Well, I would say since I came in and monitoring it, it has been roughly that or less.
Or less?
Yes.
Which means that we're only registering about 3,400 CW workers.
Yes. That means there's the limit, the cap of CW has not been met since 2020 since the 2020 data that I've reviewed.
Okay. And our cap is
This year would be 8,000.
8,000? Yeah, because I think we see more than 3,000 construction workers there on Beach Road running around. So I'm curious, right? Because I don't think the CNMI is getting accurate numbers from the federal side in regards to our CW numbers, because we don't even get them on a timely basis. Before you got in there, we were getting the prior year's numbers because they're not up to date, and the CNMI is receiving $350 for every applicant. Is that correct, or did they change the number already?
I am not 100% sure on that. I think it's
400 now?
250 per worker.
250?
Yeah, not 350. 250.
Oh, wow! So it really went down from the beginning, huh? Okay, I yield my time. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any members? Let me recognize the floor leader, Representative Marissa Flores.
Thank you, Ms. Leila, and thank you, Chairman and your team for coming over. In your earlier remarks, you mentioned the importance, once again, of having these hearing officers. And here we are, once again, claiming the same thing, hearing officers. I'm reading your 2025 budget narrative. Does your mission statement still stay the same, or have you changed your mission since then?
We actually had just changed it when you saw the new one, and so we have not changed it since then. But we have reviewed it as a team.
Okay, because it says provide equal and fair treatment and protect employees against unpaid hours worked, whether they are a U.S. citizen, status qualified citizen, or foreign national worker. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, I'm all about protecting people's civil rights and employment rights and all of that stuff. That's one of my biggest passions, and I will always support that. Can you tell me how many cases you've had? Because in fiscal year 2024, you had a total of 37 hearings. Has that number gone up since then?
We have, to be honest, I can't tell you how many hearings we've had for 2025 yet. But since the vacancy, we've had 38 pending hearings. We recently just got a legal service provider on board, so that person can address 28 of the 38, but there are still 10 that we need to assign, and so we are working on procuring legal services to address those 10. I did review the law, and there isn't a deadline for when someone makes a complaint to when they are actually heard, but reasonable is what is the standard, and I'm trying to be as reasonable as I can by hiring this legal services to meet our mission.
And we know what happens when their hearings are not heard. There's loss in employment money, there's loss of revenue for them. So as an individual, if you don't even provide this type of service, really, you're not helping anybody.
That is correct.
All right, so then in 2022, this particular, your performance indicator said 23,334 total generated funds through collection and fees and 23,000 in sanctions. Is that correct? 2022.
In 2022, I don't have my data with me, but if you have that from our website, all of that data is accurate.
Okay, so in 2024, this was actually your budget narrative for 2025. So in 2024, you collected, I don't know if this is a typo, $5.50 in fees, or it might be millions. I'm just throwing out these numbers. I'm trying to establish the importance of having a hearing officer, period. And then you collected $10,150 in sanctions. Okay, so pretty much, if you continue to have a hearing officer, it could pretty much support itself in a sense, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, my next question is, how much in legal services are you guys paying per hour?
300? 200? $250 an hour.
Wow, that's a overinflated price.
That was discounted.
Really? How many total hours so far spent?
He just started, so I can't, we haven't received a billing from that legal person yet.
So prior to that legal person, how much was your invoice?
Well, this is the first, it took
First
this
round?
long to get it established. So prior to that, zero.
So is the salary still the same from your 2025 request?
No, we did ask for an increase of, I believe, $10,000. So now the salary would be $95,000.
Okay. And then for the staff, you have a clerk and you have a,
We have a hearing clerk on this budget for 29. Oh, wrong paper. Sorry. Yes, 29,857 is for the hearing clerk.
and then the other one, there's 3 total, correct?
Well, we didn't want to push, but I just want to make sure that Spotty knows 3 is most minimum required. But if I can only get 2, these are the 2 I would want to start with. But if you're willing to give me a third, administrative staff member would be underneath a hearing clerk. So whatever the numbers would
I think
line
you
up.
should ask. I really think that you should ask.
Okay.
Because it's important to the people.
Yes.
Right? And this committee is going to decide whether or not it's important. And so if you ask us, then we can at least advocate for protecting the rights of all of these people, right, that you serve.
Thank you.
Because at the end of the day, no one's going to come up here and say, oh my gosh, no one helped me with my case. They're going to go to the Secretary of Labor.
Yeah.
They don't come here, right? But they go to you. Okay, so moving right along, you mentioned that you had all of these accounts and all these monies. So I'm just going to reshift. You have a total of 7 accounts. And then within the 7 accounts, you have 1, 2, 3 sub-accounts under the workforce investment. Is that correct?
WEA, yes.
Okay, so you have a total of, WEA has 4 accounts that they manage. Is that right? Okay,
There's more, but how it's broken down is we currently have active, we have 3 separate awards.
okay.
4 to include the CW funds that we get for the apprenticeship program.
Okay, so let's start. Let me ask. The administrative hearing officer is locally funded, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you cannot use any money through PUA outside of that, just it has to be locally sourced.
PUA was supplementing with percentage at the time when we had a hearing officer because she was also doing the PUA administrative appeals.
Okay, so here's my question.
But that will end.
It's gonna end.
Yeah.
So with all the money left in PUA, are all those cases closed? Are you still?
We are still adjudicating cases. There are less than 2,000. We've finally beat and gone below the 2,000 mark. There are still 2,000 overpayment cases to be addressed. They're in the auditing process, so it's kind of like the last steps before either a denial or a delivery.
Okay, so do you have a number on what is your projected denial, I guess, revenue to collect back?
Oh, yes. Or like overpayment.
Overpayment, about how much in totality are you projecting to receive?
So as of right now, there are 8,233 cases that have been forwarded. Of that, 359 have been either fully paid off by the claimant or were deemed closed with no existing overpayment found. Of that, the total established overpayment amount is 38.4 million. PUA collected is 18.6 million. The established for FPUC is 19.8 million.
Okay.
What we have been able to recover so far in terms of recollection or intercepting the payment is totaled at 24.1 million, 11.5 of PUA and 12.5 of FPUC.
Got you. Okay. And then how much is left to be paid?
Based on the data that I have and on I was doing a projection, there are, sorry, give me a minute. This is considering, I just want to make it clear this number is very unlikely, but considering the data that we have of what is pending, assuming everybody will be eligible, and this isn't including potential refunds later down the line, again, considering they meet all the qualifications, disbursement is looking at 39.2 million.
Okay. 10.2.
But highly unlikely. That's just based on the data and
That you
assuming
have.
that everybody would be
Okay.
eligible.
And this should be all paid out by the end of September 2025?
So right now we're requesting for an extension for the original CARES Act grants that expired are set to expire on June 30. I'm under the impression that they will give a 1-year extension for that block of funding, which is inclusive of the benefits. We have 2 other administrative funding sources that expire in September that, of course, if we do get extended and we still have money to expend there, we're gonna request for an extension.
And that extension period will be 1 year from the date of the letter or from
Of
the date of
expiration.
the grant?
It should be 1 year after
It
the
mirrors.
extension. Yeah, so it would be June 2026.
Got you. All right. Okay. Thank you. And the reason why I asked that question is because that's always been this cloud over everybody. What's left, how much is being paid. But since we have some number, right, then that we can at least give some hope to those people still waiting for their cases to be resolved. And that's gives us some comfort. And then going back to your grant, Ms. Leila, you had a foreign labor certification grant that is set to expire on September 30, 2025. The amount was $67,192. How much of that is left?
We're down to approximately $20,000.
Okay. And the purpose of this grant is to conduct agricultural survey in the islands of Saipan, Tini, and Rhoda on a quarterly basis. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Any update on that?
Yes, we actually, so in November of last year, I went to the Office of Foreign Labor Certification to have a meeting with the administrator, Mr. Brian Pasternak. And as much as these agriculture surveys give important data, it doesn't really meet the needs of what the Office of Foreign Labor Certification does with respect to the CW program. Because we don't have as many H visas out here, there isn't as much a need for this survey. So we actually will be reappropriating this funding to address our needs in our Employment Services Office. And it will help us upgrade our website so that we can have a few more bells and whistles that would help employers posting JVAs and also for job seekers looking for jobs. That is scheduled to be, we should be transitioning in the next grant. And so the plan is to finish that funding with the last survey pretty much, but then we will be transitioning to reappropriating that money for different purposes in the next year.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm trying to really tie in as much as money figures as possible so that doesn't look like an oversight hearing. So I'm really trying to tie it in as much as I can. And kind of also integrating, and I think South
for Enforcement and Compliance. So when I came in, that was my first goal is, to reach out to immigration. And we did meet, his name is James Beagle. He's very open to any enforcement ideas, but he's also very careful on how they enforce immigration here in the Sinai. And in fact, I have a meeting with him Wednesday, again, just to collaborate with night inspections on establishments. Because we've been getting calls also that, they have illegal immigration employees at the stores. Of course, like you mentioned, Congresswoman, we don't have that authority, but we have authority on going after the business establishment hiring illegal immigrants.
Absolutely, I think you're right. I mean, that's how they're finding them in the United States, I believe, right? In the workforce?
Yes.
Okay. And my question, and I'm glad that you're having that meeting, because now I don't think they can go to anywhere and find that data without your office. That's what I think.
You're absolutely correct on
Okay.
that.
So on Wednesday, is he open to giving you guys a, I guess, Ms. Leila, a collaborative, some kind of partnership and an MOU where we can get some funding from these people? I mean, they're gonna need the help of Department of Labor at some point. They can't just go out there and break down doors.
Well, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but there has not been any talks or anything that I'm aware of on our level as far as collaboration with ICE directly with an MOU, with funding and all of that. And to be honest, businesses that are breaking the law hiring illegal workers are not informing us because they're not submitting their compliance documentation. So we wouldn't know exactly who they are to begin with.
So they're not submitting their quality report as far as the number of staff they hired and let go within a certain period?
I would say that right now, to be honest, we have an enforcement or a compliance gap, which you can see in our annual report. If you were given a copy, if I have not, I promise I will deliver them to you this week.
So here's my question. How many enforcement officers do you need for this fiscal year?
Well, I know that my enforcement director would like to answer that.
Thank you for that awesome question. I would like to request additional, if possible, 5 who will sufficiently bring our enforcement up to par. And when I came in as the Director for Enforcement and Compliance, basically I think the big issue here is collaboration with other departments. I see a gap on sharing information. For example, any business that comes to the CNMI, their first approach is business license, Department of Finance. So I believe that Department of Finance should have all information, what's required for business to know, to ask, and information, right? Because when a business comes in and you don't tell them that, oh, we have a law or regulation in the Department of Labor that you're supposed to be reporting your 30%, whatever laws that are enforced, of course that business will not know. But if you come in and those informations are available in the business license, a package will be given to you. These are important information that you should know before starting a business. That will definitely help the whole CNMI government in sharing information, numbers, enforcements, or whatever information. I believe that business license is the forefront of this important collaboration with other agencies.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Kiyoshi. But you're asking for 5 people. What is their job?
Well, we have two compliance. We have compliance agency case, and we also have labor enforcement
Okay.
case. So my vision again is having two separate section in my division. One will handle compliance agency case, and the other one will focus more on going out to establishment, visiting, and enforcing. That's where the collaboration with ICE will come in.
Okay, and just for the viewing public, it's not that I support what they're doing out there. I just think that with this wing that you have, secretary, right? It's similar but not the same. But I don't believe also that they should just be, applying the same method here, because we still have our department, which is that enforcement wing, and that they should be working together, because the data is what I'm looking for. That's my most important part.
If I may, just to support his statement, we focus on the businesses that are breaking the law and not the people. The people are what ICE deals with, and we deal with the businesses.
Right.
And as far as the collaboration with a business license, we actually are on that track. We have a one-pager that has all the important labor laws that businesses need to follow, ready for them to upload with their business license application, because everything is digital nowadays, so they don't have to print anything. So we're working on that being a supplement. So when a new person wants to open a business license and they download the form, it should include our stuff. That isn't happening yet, but I've been working on that for like a while, and they finally said yes. So I'm waiting for them to say when, and we will send them our one pager so that it can be part of the business license application.
Okay, well, that's awesome, and I think I'll just yield my time. I guess we're gonna go around, I don't know how many times, but my biggest concern right now is enforcement and absolutely the hearing officer. I want to ask several questions about your other funding sources here, but I think I'll go ahead and let my colleagues have a chance to speak. Thank you, Chairman. I yield my time.
Thank you, Representative Marisa Flores. Madam Secretary, just looking at your other divisions, such as OSHA and WEOA, those are fully funded by federal funds, right?
Yes, sir.
And looking at your worksheet for WEOA, there's several vacancies here. Are there any works in trying to fill these vacancies at this moment?
I'll answer that, Mr. Chairman. Yes, most of those are already filled, and several, the career navigator positions have been filled. Some have resigned. We actually started one today. And then the navigator assistant, that's going to be announced.
Okay, the navigator assistants, right? Those are
Yes.
like about 4 or 5, right, that is vacant? Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other members have questions for Madam Secretary and her team? Recognize Representative TJ Manglonia and then Representative Vincent O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Secretary and team. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Kind of circling back to Vice Chair Atto's question about the unemployment program. Has there been any talks about developing something like that, similar to kind of what California has, where, when somebody gets either laid off or disability, that they could contribute to the fund while they're working and then collect while they're not?
Thank you for that question. We actually have completed a TAP grant to do a feasibility study, I believe, on 2 separate occasions, right? But we were not granted that grant, unfortunately. We were waiting for the Department of Labor of Guam to share their feasibility study for an unemployment program, which should have been completed about a month ago. When I spoke to that secretary in Guam, he shared that the results were not conclusive and were probably not going to be helpful to us. And so we are still at the beginning of trying to at least address a feasibility of this kind of a program. I will say that I attended a presentation where the USA Select team was sharing how not having unemployment insurance was a benefit for investors that are looking to possibly move to Saipan or CNMI for businesses to, help our economy. So I will tread lightly on that topic because it is something that would be very helpful to our community. But I know that with our economic current realities, we would definitely want to do a feasibility study to make sure that it would be appropriate for our economy before jumping straight in. And so I would like to, but I think we should study it first.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that at least it's in the talks. So, because I do, obviously, I do have family members that live in the States, and it is a beneficial program, and you know, it is also a way to collect. You know, they contribute to it, right? So, it's a give and take. And then also, kind of piggybacking on Mr. Kiyoshi's statement earlier, I do believe that there needs to be more collaboration across all agencies, especially when it comes to the business community, right? And I guess by default right now it's tax and rev and business license, right? But I do also believe collaboration with the Department of Commerce, right? Because that Department of Commerce actually should be the first point of contact for anyone that's interested in, you know, starting a business here. So I am kind of looking into legislation to, you know, kind of see if the government can establish a task force that involves all agencies, right? So you guys are in constant communication, and I think that's kind of what's lacking right now is the communication. And like you said earlier, it's not necessarily that businesses don't want to comply. It's just they don't know. There's no information given to them when they're signing up for their business license. And even at that, right? Business license focuses just on business license, but they don't mention anything about an occupancy permit or a fire permit or anything like that. So I think a little bit more collaboration, collaboration amongst all the regulatory agencies is what's needed. So that way we can fill the gaps, right? And again, make it easy, make your jobs easier. So we will work on that.
Thank you for that. I do try to collaborate and reach out to those three specific departments on a regular basis, especially, you know, with all these business closures that were in the news. We wanted to make sure that we are on the same page to maybe create some kind of early warning system because, you know, what happens out there will affect collections. And so thank you for that focus. I'm on the same page.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield my time for now.
Thank you, Rep. TJ Manglonia. Recognize Representative Vincent Odon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So regarding just to piggyback off the speaker, regarding that OSHA, your division for the OSHA, right? So I've been doing a little research, but I had to step back because it'll be a conflict of interest, right? Because I am an OSHA, you know, trainer, okay, and it's part of my business. And when I was doing that research to try to implement our own OSHA, it'll behoove that we do implement our own OSHA. And I'll tell you why. Because for every violation that is, you know, caught up here on the island, right, the companies will have to pay. And when they do submit payment, it goes over to the federal treasury, right? And I'll just punch out some numbers here. One violation, just one, okay, it's 16,500. One, okay? If it's a willful or repeated violation, that's $165,000 and 500. That's a lot of money. And I can guarantee you this, that if your division of OSHA was actually funded correctly, right, because I know that it's not, because it's federally, right, you could go into any job site and you would find multiple violations. And we're letting all of these companies get away with it, not only on the construction, but also on the general side, you know, along with all of these, supermarket and whatever, okay? And I tried to reach out before, but it never went through, that because it is a conflict of interest on my part, right, somebody, you know, and I'm hoping it would be Department of Labor, that will work with Region 9 to create, you know, our own OSHA regulation. Because according to the federal government, we can have our own OSHA federal regulation, right? We could regulate ourselves. And we can implement fines so long as it meets the federal standard or, you know, go above the standard. And that is a lot of money why in the world would the businesses here, why would we, allow these businesses here to be fined by the federal government and collect money, and it goes right back to the federal government when we can collect it here, and by doing that, if, should the CNMI Department of Labor implement something like that, and you bring it over to the legislature and we pass it into law, that amount of money could be helping create a revolving fund for Department of Labor. So this opportunity has been here for a long time. And it's just, why have we not tried to implement it? And like I said, I couldn't do it. I cannot get involved, because it will be a conflict of interest. But somebody has to do it, because why in the world would I want this $1,600 for one violation, right? $16,000 to go to the U.S. Treasury when it could have stayed here. And it could fund your department, And like I said, you go into any project here, and you will find multiple violations. And if we put that in place, a lot of people will start getting into, get with the program, so that it would not create such a massive, shortage on your manpower because there's not enough funding. And if we start doing stuff like that, and you're putting them on notice, and you actually go out there and actually do the job because now you got the funding, people are going to start stepping in line and following the law, which means that you're going to use less personnel, because now everybody understands that one project at the tune of one violation of $165,000 and, and 500, that's the whole funding for that project, or half of it. That company will go bankrupt, and that would be putting them in check. But without that, all of that violation or the fines and that leaves the island, we lose out on that opportunity. And it's not that difficult to create that program. Technically, it's just cut and paste. Change a little bit here and there, and we'll be fine. But like I said, like I reached out to Region 9 in San Francisco, and they said that we can. And if we ever we're ready, we just got to go and ask them, and they'll provide the technical support, and help draft it if we need it. So that's just an idea. That's just a suggestion.
Thank you for your comments. I believe in safety first, of course, and having that part of OSHA would definitely bring a level of safety that would be better for all people working in these kinds of jobs. But my understanding is that starting our own OSHA beyond consultation, which is what we're limited to, would take an act of our legislature, and we would be required to match 50%, so that would be an additional obligation on the CNMI government. And so if you're ready to create the law to make that happen and make sure that there's funding, then of course labor would be ready and willing to operate that part of the safety. But unless that happens on this end of the house, it won't happen for us, because we are limited to consultation only, which is not a mandatory requirement. All consultation has to be voluntary. In fact, if there's any businesses that would like to do consultation, please go to our website and sign up. We're very proud that our office has done a really great job of getting our goals and mandates for the consultation side, but it would take more than our efforts to make this happen. It would be a legislative requirement.
Thank you. And just in addition, for the sake of the conversation on that matter, when you say 50% matching, what is that figures looking like?
Please allow Tim Asaivo, who runs the OSHA consultation office, to answer that. We've actually talked about that in previous discussions, but we never brought it to a budget hearing because the 50% seemed like a lot. So we'll let you hear it directly from him.
Yes, you have the floor.
Hello. All right, good morning, everyone. So just so you know, we do have a consultation office here. There are three facets of OSHA when you're talking about field work. That's federal enforcement, there's state plans, and then there's consultation plans. So we are a SIPAN 21D consultation. Just so you know, our office fully staffed is 5, and we receive the lowest funding across the U.S. mainland, territories, and everything, which is $250,400, and we just got a 9K increase. So to have a state plan, you can have a fully funded state plan like Cal OSHA, similar to that, but they have like 9 million. So for us to have that, it would be half of 250,000, so 125,000 match.
125,000 matching requirement from the central government of the CNMI.
At the minimum.
At the minimum, will make this happen.
Yeah.
Okay. You still have the floor, Rep. Vincent.
Thanks. And that's where, you know, I'm wondering, like, because if it's, so if we do implement something like this with that matching fund, you know, just to start off, right? And then we actually go out there, you get the enforcement that you need, and go out there and start implementing all of these fines. That's a lot of money. You know, because I can tell you right now, when you go down to Beach Road and the construction road project, you know, you could go from point A to point B, and I can guarantee you, because this thing is saying per violation. If one person is not wearing their hard hat, that's a violation. So imagine if 10 of them are not wearing their hard hat. That's that's $16,000 per, right? Together with their safety shoes, whatever. So if one person doesn't meet the requirement, that person can cost that company that project. You know, but we will never get to this point, and we will never get the matching, you know what I mean, to be revolving if we don't actually implement something like this. You know, we got to start somewhere. You know, and like I said, at the end of the day, why would the federal government, you know, keep coming here, issuing fines, and then they get the money? And then out of the money that they collect here, you know, you get, what, pennies on the dollar? Where we could collect it all. You know, that's all I'm saying. You know, we're losing an opportunity to take care and police ourselves, and at the same time collect the fines instead of going out of country or out of island. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield my
Rep.
time.
And in addition, again, to that, any figures on all those citation? How much in a just in an annual basis of citation of fees are actually exceeding our CNMI, since it's federally it's a federal citation, right, from the feds? Do you have that figures?
So I don't have the data with me. I know that the numbers that were shared by Rep. Aldon, that's on the high end. Actually, the minimum violation is 6,550, with the most extreme going to 6,550. So they do visit our islands 3 times a year. This last trip, I know they issued violations to 16 different sites, and then through the process, they can lower the violations or give the full extent. So we usually don't know until the end of the year. I know everyone's familiar with IPI. They had 3 different violations for 65,000 per visit. So it really fluctuates on what the type of violation is.
Okay, so we can fairly say that hundreds of thousands, perhaps.
Can't even be more. I know the biggest violation given in our area was actually to Guam, where a contractor was a willful, repeated violator, and they gave a $1 million citation.
Okay. Thank you for that response.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from the members? The chair would like to ask for WEOA, how much of federal grants annually are we receiving for the program itself annually?
Annually, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act the CNMI receives about 1 million. So just to give you a perspective of how much we get, program year 2022, which is the one that closes on June 30, we receive 1,562,734 from our census, last census data. USDOL reevaluated the allotments to all states and territories And CNMI was reduced in program year 2023. So we went down to about 1.4 million. So that's
Okay.
about how much on the formula side.
Right, right, because we conducted our budget hearing at the Second Senatorial District, and they mentioned that you're going to be funding 10 cadet police. Is that in the works? And since perhaps a little bit over 1 million is what your funds have, how much is that going to cost the program to fund these cadets? Because they're planning, I'm sure you know about this,
Yes.
that there's works into having a academy for Tinian municipality. So how much of your funds on your program are going to be used for these 10 cadets?
So yes, that is correct. We do have a partnership with Department of Public Safety, Tinian, to support their academy training. Training, there's several things involved. You know, there's the classroom instructions that's required for the cadets to fulfill, to be, meet OPM requirements to be a police officer one. And we are collaborating with the scholarship office, because these are courses through NMC, and credited towards a degree should they decide to continue. So the cost for the classroom instruction will vary per participant. As far as the wages, we are looking to fund their on-the-job training for 6 months. That's estimated at about 9,000 per cadet. And so, you know, for 10, about 90-some thousand dollars.
For 6
that
months?
specific program, yes,
For wages itself?
correct.
So when you say about curriculums with, you guys also use your funds for those, like, you know, with scholarships and all that, or no? Just
So-
for wages?
No, it's not just wages. Our program also funds the classroom instructions, but we do have a provision in the federal law, or WEOA, that requires us to coordinate resource with other grant assistance. So that's
Like
where
such as scholarships and all that,
scholarship
yes.
comes in, yes. And so we're always the last payee. So whatever they pay in, if the course is 2,000, they only give a 500 scholarship, then WEOA picks up the bill at 1,500
Okay.
per individual.
And with regards to wages for these cadets, it could go to from 6 months to a year? That's the maximum, or?
So, you know, it's common, we're commonly known as the 6 months program. It really isn't that. Everyone's learning curve is at a different level. And so we look at the individual that we are serving, and if they are requiring additional training time and is justified, then we will consider additional time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any further first round? First round, let me recognize the Minority Leader, Representative Roy Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Department of Labor and Secretary, for being here and your team. Just a quick question. How many employees are federally funded?
In my office alone, I have 19 active as of today, because I do have resignations, people on military leave, but 19 that are staff. There, you will see all the time in the budget that there's so many WEA trainings, because those are added on. So those are program participants, different.
Okay, thank you. And for the Secretary's office?
I'll let Layla respond.
Full-time employees that are federally funded, or, so we have approximately 4 staff who are paid out of FLC and MSHA at 12.5%. The remaining CW or the local funds pay 87.5%.
For PUA, it's 34. 34 for PUA. Yeah.
Anything in enforcement? Any federal?
So we have 2 grants that were being used to cover a percentage of enforcement. The MSHA Mining Safety and Health Grant, and the FLC grant. But the FLC grant will be transitioning to the Employment Services team in the next fiscal year because of the changes in our grant to focus on the CW program and the website. MSHA, which is Mining, Health, and Safety, is what's covering a percentage of 2 enforcement staff. So their percentage is not 100%.
So is that all, that's all the federal positions?
Plus 5 in OSHA.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Any further? Okay, from the first round. So second round, I recognize Rep. Vincent O'Don and then Floor Leader Marissa Flores.
Thank you, Chair. So we have, because of the WEOA program, right? It goes to help pay for, help companies hire people to pay their salary, correct? Is there a reason why some of those, payments to or reimbursement to the companies are delayed, and some of them are delayed like 2, 3, 4 months? Because like when they come to us and they complain that they're not getting reimbursed, it's coming out of their pocket, and they're like, using their own funds, and they're hoping and praying that they're going to get refunded on time. And to them, they're worried because they could only do so much before they would have to let go and then, have to wait to get refunded.
I'll let Francis respond to the refund.
Thank you for the question, Rep. O'Don. There are several factors involved. I think the biggest delay we experienced this year was the closeout of the fiscal year and the numerous extensions that occurred, even after the proposed 2 weeks. Aside from that, it's just the process in itself. So as much as possible, we do try to avoid any delays. We cannot, determine whether, OMB can put it out fast enough, or finance for that matter, because other signatories are involved in our paperwork. And so it's the whole process. We are always going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out how we can ease the process and reduce the delays. But unfortunately, there's just areas that is beyond my control.
Right, and so the process then again, right? Because if the private sectors are forking up their own funding, hoping that the funding that's supposed to be in this, WEOA program is going to come to them on time. Because what would happen to these companies if they don't pay their workers on time? They're going to get, a visit from labor. All because the process, right? And then not only the process, does this have merit? I quote from one of the companies, right, that when they volunteered to get into this program, they are required to submit certain documents, correct? And when they submit all of those certain documents, they submitted everything. And when they ask, when am I going to get my reimbursement, they're required to resubmit some documents again. So it causes frustration on the private sector side, just trying to volunteer, or volunteered into this program, but they have to go through so much hurdle resubmitting paperwork, waiting for the process, and they're getting frustrated. So what good incentive is it to work with this and trying to help create jobs when it's a nightmare just trying to go through the process? Because we're missing documents again, and they have to resubmit again, and then they would have to hand deliver the document up to the office. When it comes to business, right, time is money. And when they have to waste their time and their resources submitting all of these paperwork again, they might as well just, like a lot of them are thinking, like, why would I even want to get into this program? But because they want to help, the government seems to be making it difficult. So again, government inefficiency, right? And I remember my colleague, TJ, when he, proposed that bill that everything in the government should be digitized, so that the companies, the one that actually builds an economy, don't have to go through a whole lot of red tape, you know what I mean, and paying all of these taxes that pays all of our salaries, you know. So instead of making it easy for these companies, the ones that actually create jobs and brings in money, we're making it extremely difficult for them. So it's not fair to ask these companies to volunteer in these federally funded program, but yet turned around and then they have to jump through hoops and red tape because the inefficiency, which again costs businesses money. You know, so when are we ever, if ever, right, the government is going to collaborate with each other so that the businesses are not going through all of this headache? But yet every year, the government agencies and departments come over here and ask for funding. The funding that we collect from these businesses and the people that pay their taxes. But yet, the inconsistency keeps repeating itself. And all they're asking for is, you know, just, can you make it easy for us? But yet we keep taxing the hell out of them, but their money, the investment that they're making into the CNMI, it seems like it's not worth it. And that's the reason why businesses are shutting down. You know, so how?
quickly. And
It's defend myself. Isolated, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it after. But we also have to remember staffing, you know. So back, I can't remember what year, 2018, when we were asked to move from local budget to federal, it did take away from program. And so I do have also limitations on the federal funding on how much goes to administrative expenses. So if this body, I agree with the secretary, I'm not coming here to ask for money, we'll support ourselves, but, you know, to provide efficient services, timely, you know, we all make mistakes, we're human. Then I would need to ask for funding for additional staff, because my business service team went from 2 to 1. I am currently waiting for another federal grant that will help to fund 50% of another business service coordinator so that we can provide timely and efficient services to our business. But I do appreciate that I can speak to you more about that case, because also I want to, you know, inform this body that it's not voluntary. Businesses seek our services is because they would like to build their workforce, fill the skills gap that exists in their workforce or in their respective industries. So that's why we're here. And I tell you,
especially with the transition of PUA, who has maintained and taken care of our operations for the last 5 years. So we've actually looked at reducing our phone lines. We are probably going to give back a building or two to the SAA so that those buildings can be reappropriated to other agencies, because those buildings, we have 9 currently, and each of them to put power, water, and all of that is a lot. So I am actively looking at plans on how we can reduce our operations but maintain our service that we provide, of course. We've actually made a big improvement on making all of our operation digital. Documentation is all available digitally now. So any form or any requirement that a business must submit to us can be online. The only thing we can't do is payment at Treasury. And so that's the only thing we require a business to go and drive to Treasury to pay. And then they can email us any receipts that they receive. So Department of Labor has met that mandate, which was actually set in law several years ago in the I believe it was the PL 17-01, which required for all labor operations to be digitized to reduce expenses. And so we have met that mandate. And we're continuing to add to our arsenal of forms online for businesses to have access to. So we're doing our part to make those changes, to make it more accessible, so that businesses, are not having to drive up to us at all. In fact, with the explorers that Ms. Francis has, established in the community, businesses don't have to drive up to us directly, or we as participants. They can go and get these services at the Carolinian UT. They can go to NMTI. We have people there that can help them sign up to join our programs. So we're trying to make sure we're spread ourselves as far as we can to get more participants and work with our businesses to come to them so that we can provide services. So I hope that can address the concerns that you shared.
You still have the floor, Representative Vincent Odon.
Thank you. The other concern I have is, when this, graduating class was started to come up, right? And like just take NMC, for example, where it says that, they just graduated 240 plus, students with their bachelor's degree and whatever degree that they may have. And I was supposed to write an article, but one of our founding fathers, Abraham Lincoln, you write it, and then after that, think about it, and then you just throw it in the trash, right? Because just looking at the numbers of the college graduates, right, and then looking at the numbers of the high school graduate, and then we look at the numbers at NM Tech, right? That's a lot of people that graduated, that got certified or whatever. But yet the availability of work, it's not there. So when these students are graduating, and not everybody's bound for college, and not everybody that graduated college has a market here for their degree, whatever it may be, right? And yet, during the last education summit, right, when you look at the type of work that is in demand, like currently, especially now, right? Majority of it is construction, right? Service, like technical skills and whatnot. But yet, when you look around, I can guarantee you, like let's just say, for example, the construction, if we take 100%, more than 75% or 80% are foreign workforce. And when we talk about money, again, that 80% workforce that are not from here, where do you think their paycheck goes? It definitely doesn't stay here. So how are we supposed to, when the schools and labor, I don't know if we're working together or not, collaboration maybe, that is maybe lacking again on the priorities on the types of jobs that are available, but most of it is filled by, foreign labor. Because if we have construction that are more than 80% foreign workforce, that's more than 80% of, finances that leaves this island. But yeah, when I go to NM Tech, and I try to look at how many students are going through their, masonry class. Out of that whole year, probably less than 10. But yet, that's one of the major workforce that we need. We need electricians. How many workforce that are local or U.S. citizens are actually electricians? Probably one, but yet it's in demand. HVAC. Everybody has aircon. But I guarantee you call any AC company on the island, who's working? It sure as hell ain't local people. So why, I mean, are we pushing NM Tech and the high schools to really push these programs? Because I remember back in the day when you go to Hopwood, you start carpentry class. By the time you go to high school, you're a pretty damn good woodworker, you know, or a mechanic. But for whatever reason, the school system stopped the program. But yet now that's in demand. So what is labor really doing to, you know, transition our workforce to go into these technical fields and to really push it? Because right now we're losing. A lot of the money is not staying here, you know, but yet our people, I'm pretty sure our people are willing to work, because when they leave this island, relocate back to the state site, they work in construction, they work at the stores, you know, retail, you know, they do all kinds of jobs that are available here, but they're filled by, you know, foreigners. And a lot of them, they don't want to leave. And yes, you know, some of them want to leave because it's a higher paying job over there, but at the same time, they understand the math that you might go to the States, and yes, the salary is higher, but if the cost of living is also high. But as long as, you know, if you're at home and you're one of the fortunate people that actually own your own land and own your own house, and you don't have to pay a mortgage, you know, your $10 an hour wage is good enough. You know, so is labor really actually working with the schools to really push these trades so that it'll help our local workforce, so that we don't depend 80% of our workforce is coming from the outside?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, go ahead and answer, Madam Secretary. But I would like to ask the members that we try to focus on the budget submission by department, and maybe perhaps we can have a different audience and a different setting for this kind of questions on how we can strengthen and build bridges with other agencies. But go ahead and respond, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chairman. I will let Francis talk about our collaboration with the public school system, but just so that you can know, for the second quarter of this year, there were 5,239 job openings available for any graduate or completer to apply to in our system. And that is a wide range of all job vacancies that are out there. And with respect to providing more services with job placement, that would be something that we could look forward to if we were able to be part of the Wagner-Pizer legislation, which our current delegate has reintroduced in U.S. Congress, which would give us additional federal funding so that we would have more staffing to be able to conduct that. Currently, our very small employment services team can only manage the job vacancies and the programs that are required to are required to sign up for jobs, like the food stamp programs, but also in enforcing or finding the enforcement level of the job declaration, which then we would transmit to enforcement. And so the current capacity of our team is not there to go as far as you want, but luckily we have WEOA to help us with a lot of these things. And so I'll let Francis share on the other collaborations that we've done to make sure we have a career pathway in pipeline.
Thank you, Secretary and Rep. Hodon. So yes, the data does support that the construction industry is the top industry or the most in demand here in the CNMI, and mainly occupied by CW permits. What we have done to try to entice our job seekers, individuals out there looking for work to go into construction, is we have developed the pre-apprenticeship in construction. Through that program, it does allow individuals to take the core NCCER core course and then go into an internship with an employer so that they can explore the various occupations within to advance themselves. You know, today, construction is not what it is 10 years ago. They're getting paid top dollars. Even in Tinian, you know, that's where we're really trying to push as well. We're challenged with people enrolling in the program. So it's not easy to change people's mindset about the job, you know, and have them go into construction. So we work closely with, you know, NMTech to develop the apprenticeship. Actually, the construction apprenticeship is registered with USDOL through NMTech, which allowed us to develop the pre-apprenticeship approach. So each term, we do market out the construction pre-apprenticeship because it is the opportunity to just explore. We don't expect them to just, you know, jump in. We're finding people who are saying, no, it's not for me. So they move on to healthcare or IT or other fields. And we have to respect that because our program, WEOA, is designed to focus on the individual's interests. We don't want to invest these dollars in construction if that's really not where their heart is or their career path. So we're open to other suggestions to try to get more folks into these programs. I think there's some work that's being done with our educational partners. Thank you.
Thank you.
You used your time,
Yes,
Rep.
yes,
Bernard?
I yield.
Thank you. Rep. Flores, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Let me just take a breather real quick. All right, so I'm gonna try to put this in order, connect it to your funding sources, and see if there's any way we can leverage, reprogram, match, and whatever it is that we're trying to do here. Okay, so Madam Secretary, on August 16, 2023, the CNMI Department of Labor went into an MOU with the Governor's Office. The purpose of the MOU is to reestablish relationship between two agencies, thereby sharing information on training and labor opportunities. Its goals are to help unemployed individuals transition back into the workforce, to acquire additional skills and acquire certification through training. Is that still in existence?
What was the date of that again?
August 16, 2023.
I'm between, was that with the broadband?
Ma'am, it just says, Madam Secretary, that the CNMI Department of Labor, which it might be because broadband is under the Governor's Office.
Yeah, that was
But-
around the same time.
Okay, so that's still in existence.
Yes, we actually just graduated over 200 participants from the broadband program. It was
Okay.
part of our collaboration.
And did the CNMI Department of Labor get any funds to help in this particular endeavor?
We did not receive any funds. I believe WEOA participated in some aspects.
We're partners.
Okay.
And so I know the next step in our partnership is to work on bridging the gap with employers so that we can make,
Okay.
develop training programs.
So my question were the phases developed by broadband, or was that the phases and this collaborative MOU partnership developed by WEOA?
By broadband.
Broadband, okay, so you can go back and redesign this MOU, can you?
I mean, if there is still a purpose for it and there's funding, of course.
Okay.
But I'm not sure where the next steps are beyond the courses that were done and now the placement of workers.
And the reason why I'm asking that, Madam Secretary, is because if you can develop an MOU like this, then you can go back and renegotiate through broadband because they still have $87 million. I don't see anything happening. I don't even see any fiber optic cable getting dumped anywhere. But I'm glad that it's going to graduate this people and help build the skill. But if that model is already there, then I'm sure we can apply that same model on the other side.
My
Trying to tap into other areas of the workforce. Go ahead.
My understanding for the broadband is they did have I believe it was about 3 million that were taken out for the workforce part, but the remainder corpus, I believe, is supposed to be for the installation with the companies that are going to install it. And so we were I can't speak for broadband.
Okay.
But that's my understanding.
Okay, so then you could additionally ask for more supports going back to see how they can you guys can leverage off funds, correct?
I don't know.
Okay. Maybe we might ask Mr. Hunter about how, take a look at this MOU, because if we can model something like that to lift other people and, because we can't say that the sun is going to be a factor because the people putting the cable down are working in the hot sun. Same would apply if they were doing construction work, right? So I guess, Ms. Torres, if you can get a chance, I'm going to go ahead and ask to see this MOU. I've never seen it before, but it did show up, so I'm going to ask and see how we can work together. My next question, and again, this is towards WEOA. We know that you mentioned that it's hard to place these people because it's kind of tailored to what they would like to see and how they envision their future, right? So when you're thinking of your program and you're thinking of NMTI, post-secondary really doesn't, it's there. And we see that there's always going to be an influx in post-secondary education. But for trade, that's the hardest part. We're having a hard time filling trade. So if we were to, let's say, work with, I know PSS is already, they have an IT, NM Tech kind of like a model thing that they're doing with, I believe, Ms. Barcinas. Are you working with them?
That's their CTE program, so they do have their own funding for that. But yes, we do work together with their projects.
Are you able to leverage any funds from that?
No. They use that to pay for because they do contract the training providers. So I do know they have hospitality, and then they have the NM Tech Trade Up. Hospitality is Island Training Solutions. And then they do have the Maritime, which is the Western Pacific Maritime Academy. So yeah, they work directly with the providers.
Okay, so here's my next question. And it's going to tie into food stamp. Because I know that you get some people in food stamp that come over there and ask you to sign off on some paper. Right? Do they need any kind of declaration that they attempted to find a job with your office?
So that actually is through the Employment Services Division, where they do have to go do their work certification. As far as my office and our program, food stamp recipients are our priority population. So on a monthly basis during benefits, my team goes out there each month and stays for the week to try to get the recipients to register with us. So
Okay.
going out there, we're out there. Getting them in the program, that's
the hard
another
part.
story.
Okay. So what is your success rate? And I'm going to get to the money figure.
I'm just going to talk about our time at Food Stamp.
Okay.
It's not great. We get about maybe in a week, about less than 10 people come through. That actually, get information. They just come by, take the application, and then walk away.
All right. Do you believe that the Department of Labor can strengthen their ties with NAP?
Yes, we actually do have, working on our MOU with NAP as well.
Wonderful. Okay. And that would be published on your site upon execution?
Yes, upon execution.
Okay. And I'm going to get back to this, Rook. Are you able to leverage any funds from SNAP in regard to job placement?
I can't answer exactly what funding they get, but I do know their training dollars, I believe it's no longer there.
Okay.
So that's where we're working on our MOU to create that requirement for them to come through the program so we can help build their skills and meet the eligibility requirements for these jobs that are being posted.
All right. And so just for numbers' sake, because it's a ways and means, for numbers' sake, how much do you receive in federal funds, I guess, for your grant award last year, or is it 2 years ago?
I'll just share all the awards I have.
Okay.
Okay, so I have 4 active federal awards.
Okay, Ms. Torres, I'm just going to interject. I'll name the account,
Okay.
and then Ms. Vicky can give us the balance. That work? Chairman, may I do that? Okay.
Proceed.
Okay, so account number FG 180 6002 3 and 24.
If I may, Rep. Flores. So that's just one account
Right.
for, as part of one award.
Right, I'm looking,
Okay.
there's several awards here that I see. There's 7 that are very obvious in front of me. And then under your WEA, you have 1, 2, 3 other sub-accounts. Is that right?
We have many sub-accounts.
Many
So one
okay.
program year can have anywhere. So PY 22, we have a total of, I believe it's like between 23, FG 23 at the end to 43. And then our PY 23 award is FG's 43 to 53.
Okay.
And then our PY 24 is 54 to 61.
And those funds can only be spent to meet the goals and objectives of Workforce Investment Agency,
The Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act.
which is part of the triple E thing, the 3E.
That was before.
Okay.
So WEOA superseded WEA.
Got you. Okay, so my next question, and I know that at one point, the Workforce Investment Agency, in times of disaster, let's say super typhoons, they were able to provide some temporary employment in terms of mitigation and that type of, I guess, labor, right?
Correct.
Is that still in existence?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have the one current grant from COVID-19 set to expire on September 30. That's specific to COVID-19. So what we have is resource coordinators.
And how much funding is left in that account?
We have, the total award was 7.5, and we have about 4 million left.
4 million left.
Yes.
And does this particular funding source have you guys already have made plans in case there's a super typhoon? I know that we're expecting 5 this year.
So this particular grant is specific to the COVID-19 activities. So when a disaster comes in and we are declared a disaster area, that's when we can go in and apply for that specific disaster. You
Okay.
cannot mix the work unless approved.
Right. And
Yes.
everything has to be approved especially that particular funding source. There's a whole process. You must be identified as having a disaster, number 1, and then that gives you the green light to do whatever you want to do. I think it was one of the commissioners that called it a force majeure or some fancy word like that, but it is still just,
It is available for us.
it's available, okay.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure, so upon any disaster moving forward, and let's just say fiscal year 2026, if there is any disaster that has been determined by the federal government, you've got money set aside for that particular purpose.
Right. We put together the whole grant application, work with our partners, let's say FEMA or other agencies, Homeland, do their assessment and determine, the scope of work that needs to be done. So for disaster cleanup, it's a different position, yeah.
Do you give money to NMTI?
We do pay or give money to NMTI based on our participant enrollment. So we don't sub-award them a bulk. We pay them as we get folks enrolled in their programs.
Okay, so assuming construction, we know that they don't start a class unless they have
Yes.
like 10 people,
Correct.
right? So in terms of construction, if you had 10 people in construction, how much would you give them?
The core course is approximately $2,000 some dollars. So if we actually filled, the 10 slots, then they would be paid 20 some, if my math's correct. 20 some thousand, 200 some thousand.
Okay. So here's another question then. I don't know if this applies, I might be wrong, but we noticed that the Commissioner for Corrections has been very busy utilizing his low-tier inmates to take some of these courses also with NMTI. Are you in any way involved in that? Can you be involved in it, considering that these are low-tier individuals serving time in the facility?
The program can be involved. We have had discussions with Commissioner Torres, and we're, working out the legal
Okay.
details to access and sit with the inmate and
Okay.
provide our career counseling
Okay.
to do our part that's required on the federal side.
So it seems good that you guys are actually starting to create these MOUs so that you can start utilizing these funds to help with the training and building of a labor workforce that is appropriate, or the need right now. I don't know if appropriate's the word, but to fill the need for right now. And Madam Secretary, you just finished your 5-year plan?
We went over our, sorry, what was the name? It's posted on my wall. I'm having a brain fart. The state, not the state plan, the strategic plan. Thank you, sorry.
Okay.
Yes,
So that's been done?
We did.
Okay. And then, I guess, one of the things that we do see, we have some very passionate people in our community that really want to help people gain work. And I don't know, maybe there's something we should, consider, like, treat it like a U.S. military, just get them off the street and put them in infantry, right? And just let them go and see what they're going to do, pass a basic training class or something. But I just, I see a lot of our people, especially when you're looking at the exit from PSS. And this was, I think, last year. They were passing their students, but in reading and math, they were recorded, enrolled in PSS at remedial math and English at 89%. What does that tell you? Does that tell you that they're ready for school, or does that tell you that they're ready to work?
Are you referring to the placement test, the NMC placement test?
Yes.
I guess I was part of a lot of research several years ago when I was still in the school system, and there's some argument to say that also the placement tests that are being used across all community colleges is flawed as well, because if you look at the data across community colleges, many students are placed in remedial courses. So my question then, and what we were working on at the time, was what are school systems doing to align with community colleges to fill whatever that gap may be. In PSS, with the requirement of only doing 3 years of math, when you become a senior and you don't take math at all for a whole year, and then you're supposed to take a placement test, you're not going to do very well, because if you take Algebra 1, Geometry, and then Algebra 2, and no math for your senior year, what are you going to do? So I would look deeper at all of the elements of the data before making an assumption, because I think that maybe we could look at how we align our curriculum and requirements. I know that you want to not talk about that, sir, but I also wanted to just address requirements in public school, why they don't offer carpentry versus English, because the board requirements say you cannot graduate without 4 English, without 3 math, without 2 social studies, without 2 science. And if you make all of the teachers teach those courses, you don't have enough money left to teach a carpentry course.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, I didn't mean to hit a nerve there, but I noticed it got really elevated, and I know you're very passionate when it comes to education, but I was getting to a point, and the point was going to be very simple. If that is the case, then would Department of Labor take a stance and work with PSS and say we need more of home ec, carpentry, and move everything back to the school system the way it was when we were going to school? Would you have a position on that?
I would love to work with the Board of Education so that we can, align what the labor needs of the CNMI are to what education courses are being given, because that kind of alignment would make more graduates ready for whatever is out in our current economic needs.
And this might help you. I'll tell you why. Because we're graduating more people out of collegiate, post-secondary institutions. That's great. I don't have a problem with that. I support that wholeheartedly. But we forgot to think when we were doing all of these transition that there was going to be a workforce that didn't want to go to post-secondary education. Therefore, causing the board to design a curriculum that was focused streamline focus straight to post-secondary education to fill the need for teachers, and that turned into a tidal wave of wonderful opportunity in post-secondary education, leaving the rest of the hard marginalized now families, okay, because that's your target now, are these families that cannot go to school, right? And now we need to figure out a way to place them, but we have to pique their interest early, because you cannot pique it at the end when they're out. We got to pique it in the beginning, and I think high school would be the best place. So if you're open to work to redesign a curriculum with the Board of Education, I would really support that, because honestly, there's no sense in having a tech school when you can't fill it with students. But they will not go from high school into tech with no ethic besides waking up in the morning, going to school, getting ready, and nothing. Because trade is very different. You got to be there every day, or else you don't learn anything. It's very fast paced. So I guess if in order for us as a community to help with Ms. Torres and her side, especially our workforce, please have those conversations with PSS, because growing up, the curriculum was really hands-on. And right now, you see a lot of work with this new generation being very tech-savvy. And some of them are coders, and we don't even have a coder class at NMC. How did they get that?
I agree with you,
So
but thank you.
please work with PSS. I mean, like I said, if they're entering at 89% remedial on math and English, then obviously we can figure out another way to improve that and have them work towards more basic life skills, right? And ethic, because that's what we're missing right now, is the work ethic and the skill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary. I yield my time.
Thank you, Representative Marisa. Are there any other questions from the members? If there is no further questions from the members, Madam Secretary, on behalf of this Committee on Ways and Means, we thank you and your staff for coming before us and answering our questions and expressing your vision and your plans for this fiscal year of 2026 budget. And with that, I'm going to give you the floor for any closing remarks if you have.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to all members who were able to come today and share your thoughts, your vision, and also especially your questions. Thank you for supporting our ask in the Administrative Hearing Office in particular, and maybe even our Enforcement Office. But I do want to say that I do support this budget. We will be able to survive on operations that we have in stores for now as we move, into this next stage of our economy, and hopefully we'll get better collections in the future. But as it stands, labor will be fine in the next fiscal year with the budget that is submitted. We just ask that you don't delete any unfilled FTEs, because those are critical to our operations. And so thank you so much. And if there's anything further, we will be available.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And with that, we move further in our order of business. We are now in item 6, announcements. Are there any announcements from the members? Recognize Floor Leader Marisa Flores.
So in totality, Ms. Leila, how much do you need from this committee? That's an announcement. I'm announcing a question. How much in totality do you need? For what your need is administrative officer and enforcement. What does that number look like? Straight to the point, 1 year.
Are you asking for what we need for our total budget this year, or just the additional things that you
The
were?
hearing officer is the most important one, because that's what I'm going to advocate for, and the enforcement. So about 200,000, that should be good?
Yeah,
sorry.
those things are,
Already?
it's budgeted already, the vacant position.
Okay, well, since
Okay.
they know, and I asked you, and you weren't ready
All
to
right.
answer my question, Madam Secretary, then I'm sure they understand the need, but I will work tirelessly and closely because I really need to have that hearing officer position filled. You are here in the 23rd legislature asking for it. You're asking for it again. I don't see why you have to keep coming back here asking for the same thing. So we'll see. Hopefully this committee can come to terms with that. Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, that was more than an announcement. I apologize.
Those positions are budgeted already. So any further announcement? If there's no further announcement, then at this time, the chair now adjourns this budget hearing. We are now adjourned.